Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Order of Vespers by Matilda Reyes, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me for chapter 1. From the moment I woke up, there had been flashing neon signs warning me that danger was coming. An alarm that never went off, the stabbing pain in my temple, an unsettled stomach, a dead cell phone, and a tear in my pants. Worse were the fingers that itched and the tingles in my arms. A smart person, a sane person, would have heeded the caution. She would have listened to her father, gone back to bed, and realized it was the perfect time for a mental health day. She would have told him the truth, begged him to stay home with her in case it happened again. She'd do everything to protect those around her. She'd avoid blowing up the west hallway of our high school. Unfortunately, I wasn't that selfless or self aware. The explosion occurred, allegedly, shortly before the lunch period ended. Most of the lockers in the hallway were redecorated in scorch marks and snazzy divots and holes. The ones closest to the blast site featured partially melted locks. Shards of the fluorescent lights littered the ground, warm and reflecting a strange prism-like glow. And in the center of the destruction, unconscious and untouched by the violence of the explosion, was me. Theories flew among the student body as the police combed over the crime scene. They searched me, my bags, my clothes, and my locker, but they found nothing that could have caused the blast. I pleaded innocence and ignorance, but no one believed me. A full detail of police went with me to the principal's office on school arrest until they found a reason to charge me with arson, attempted murder, terrorism. My incarceration in Mr. Connor's office wasn't the worst punishment. The ode to secondary education on a budget had been a second home for the last year. It was plywood furniture with cracks where someone drilled too much, and its cheap paisley carpet were as familiar as the plain violet quilt on my bed at home. The room was a testimony to the pathetic efforts to modernize the school on a shoestring budget. While I wasn't opposed to some renovations, I thought the money could have been better spent on new floors that didn't catch fire when there were surprise explosions. There was no losing my temper again. Screaming only got me restrained by the police, and telling the truth made no difference. No one believed me, not even after my twin brother Jude came to my defense. We were inseparable, two peas in a pod. Although we constantly bickered, we were each other's sword and shield, as he liked to say. Dork. Jude was out to protect me, and hearing him argue with everyone over my innocence was the only thing that kept me sane. A new police officer, a woman with a slight build and sharp, angular face, walked into my temporary prison and sat down in Mr. Connor's chair. She placed her hands on the desk, palms up, and gave me the pleading puppy dog eyes. It was just as fake as her blonde hair with those dark roots, as if she were trying to make me believe that she was on my side. She failed miserably. I crossed my arms and sat back with all the teenage insolence I could muster. I've never backed down, and I wasn't starting with this twit. Ms. Jasper Lee Andrews. That's my name. Don't wear it out, I drawled. Look, detective, I have nothing else to say. The woman sat back and met my raised eyebrow stare with one of her own. She was dressed in plain clothes, but everything about her screamed cop. Black clumps of leather I recognized as orthopedic shoes, comfortable and serviceable black pants, a navy blue button-down shirt, and a jacket to cover her holster and gun. Jasper. May I call you Jasper? No. Her head jerked back. No. I picked at the loose strands at the knee of my black jeans. It was the only victim in the explosion. It was the one day all school year that I'd worn all black clothing. It probably didn't help my case. Whatever, she snapped. You have to talk to me. I can't help you if you give me nothing to bring to my bosses. What did you use to cause the explosion? I didn't cause the alleged explosion, I said calmly, even as my fingernails dug into my knee hard enough to draw blood. You were found at the scene. A familiar shift came over me. My skin warmed, and if I were a dog, I would have had my hackles rose. I wasn't lying, and I certainly wasn't an arsonist. I was unconscious, knocked over by your own handiwork. And just like that, she appeared in my mind. She was that inner primitive being hell-bent on protecting me and mine. We existed in the same space, and she almost always let me give input, although she ignored me most of the time. We raised my head slowly and pinned the detective with a glower that dared her to mess with me, us. No, I responded. How many times do I have to tell you I didn't do anything? You're interrogating me. You're interrogating me like I'm the only person in the entire school who might pull a prank like this. You should be asking if I'm You should be asking if I'm in danger from some lunatic. There was no lunatic unless you counted my potentially split personality. She wasn't just a badass weekend warrior with an iron will and the self-preservation of a feral creature. She was insolent as all get out, and I had a sinking feeling she was about to make things worse. The detective drew herself up to her full height in her chair, an impressive 5'3" if I had to guess. Well, Miss Andrews, there's no evidence that you didn't cause the explosion. This attitude isn't going to help you. Yeah, well, I have a major problem going to jail for an alleged crime that I didn't commit. Going to jail isn't on my bucket list. Here's what I don't get, she mused. You're an honor student, a former cheerleader, pretty and athletic. Your brother's one of the most popular kids in this high school. What's your deal? Silly teenage prankster? Or are you part of something that's much bigger than you realize? The snort just came out. Couldn't help it. Like what? Terrorism? You used the word, not me. My hand twitched and both my warrior chick and I stowed up our urges to slap the woman. The young detective caught the big bad terrorist in the act and was going to get a commendation. I saw it in her face, the way her lips curled into a sneer and her body practically vibrated excitement. Detective Bryant. Haven't you heard of the concept of innocence until proven guilty? Because as far as I'm concerned, you've got nothing. So do us all a favor, clear the alleged crime scene and let me go home. I've got an exam tomorrow. You were the only one in the area, and the scorch marks originated from you. Yet there's not a smudge on your clothes, no burnt hair. I was unconscious. I'm sorry, Jasper. We're not letting you go. Although it would have been more satisfying to throw something at her, the rational part of my brain took over. Let's review the facts. Each statement was punctuated by a tick off one of my fingers. First, there was an explosion at the school. Second, no one was hurt except the girl with a huge bruise on her forehead who was found in the middle of the wreckage. Third, you found her unconscious. Fourth, you can stop now, she snapped again. Nope, I said gleefully. Like I said before, you so rudely interrupted me. Fourth, there was nothing on her person or in her belongings that could cause an explosion. Fifth, the police didn't wait for my lawyer to badger the only victim, me. Sixth, well, get this. No one read me my rights or tried to explain them. That's a bad look for you guys. Seventh, the victim hasn't gotten access to medical care, which would be bad under normal circumstances, but I'm visibly injured. Officer Bryant wasn't happy with me if the flared nostrils and hands gripping the edge of the armrest on Renee's side. You haven't asked for medical care. Oh, but I have, twice. Number 8 is my favorite. Want to hear it? She eyed me warily, but nodded. A slow smile crossed my face, all teeth and no kindness. Nothing here adds up to probable cause, which means you're not going to arrest me unless you want my lawyer bringing those facts up to your captain. My giggles interrupted my monologue and probably made me look like the psycho everyone assumed I was. Hell, of course, we're reporting it to your captain. How about you go fetch me a nurse, something to eat, and my lawyer? I'm starving, considering I was knocked unconscious and in the middle of an explosion. Chocolate and a can of pop would be fabulous. Bye now. With a dismissive glance, I shut her out of my world and grabbed my calculus textbook. Potential arrest or not, I had a test the next morning, and I refused to fail. Excuse me. The boredom was damn near torturous. I finished studying for calculus twice. I memorized the new titles on Mr. Connor's bookshelves. I chipped off the nail polish I had so carefully applied the previous evening. Heck, I studied the weaving in my backpack until my eyes burned. My cell phone was confiscated as if the plans for my elaborate stunt were written in code on some app called Explosions Are Cool. It was irrational, but the loss of my cell phone upset me more than anything else. I had no connection to the world beyond the door a few feet away. The silence was almost unbearable, worse than listening to the rumors that flew around the school. Jasper's such a freak. She's probably a Satanist. What's next? Is she going to sacrifice puppies in the cafeteria? She was homecoming queen. Nobody dropped blood on her. Why is she doing this? Dismissal had been an hour ago. Given the rumor mill at our small high school, I figured my latest alleged stunt was likely the subject of dinner conversations all over our small town. My parents were most likely furious. They had already probably decided to ground me for life. Again. Yep, I kept passing out and blowing things up around me for fun. It was a blast. The pun totally intended. Not for the first time that day, I laughed at the absurdity of it all. The police and fire departments combed my school for hours. They were holding me in custody, for lack of a better term, in the principal's office. My lawyer was on her way over to spring me, and I was positive my parents planned to lock me in my room for the near future. Bye-bye, senior prom. You'll be missed, high school graduation. Toodles, college next fall. I like to think I was a good person if you overlooked the random uncontrolled explosions. I was a responsible student who made honor roll every semester. Debate teams throughout the county feared my name. I would have been class president if I hadn't accidentally set the ballots on fire. Mrs. Stanish, the school secretary, stumped into the office and glared at me. Her perpetual bad mood was amplified 100-fold because Mr. Connor hadn't let her go home. The woman reminded me of a gnome, really short and stocky, with medium-length hair that floated around her like a cloud. She had the worst attitude with me, as if she were convinced I purposely did things to make her life miserable. You keep quiet in here, Jasper Andrews. You've made enough of a spectacle today. Gotcha. No noise, no explosions. I can handle that. My bladder screamed at me. Mrs. Stanish, I need to go to the bathroom. May I please go? It's right across the hall. No, you may not. You should have thought about that before your disgusting rampage. If it were up to me, I'd send you straight to Sing Sing and throw away the key. Sit in it. What? I exclaimed. You can't do that. She narrowed her beady eyes and put her hands on what might have been hips. Her body was shaped like a rectangle, so it wasn't clear. I'm not letting you out of this room. Lord knows what you'll do. Come on, I whined. You can watch me if you want. I just need to pee. I'll see if the police will watch you, she said grudgingly. I let out a breath. Thank you. Mrs. Stanish scowled at me and then walked out of the office, slamming the door behind her. I closed my eyes and banged my head against the wall. Big mistake. The stabbing pain behind my left eye reminded me of the lump that formed when I had fallen to the floor or whatever happened. I couldn't remember anything from the time I walked out of the cafeteria to the time a hot EMT woke me up. Before Mrs. Stanish returned, a knock on the door made me jump. The school nurse poked her head into the office with a small smile. The appearance of Miss Davis, a sweet woman with a pixie-cut blue eyes, a model's figure, and a bad habit of wearing tie-dyed outfits, was a huge comfort. How's that head doing, Jasper? She asked as she stepped into the room. It's been better. I winced when she pressed on the orange-sized lump on my temple. Passing out and slamming my skull against the floor kind of killed my day. She laughed and shined a light into my eyes, somehow causing almost 100 lockers to explode and scorching the west hallway didn't affect your mood. Go figure. An unexpected giggle burst out of me like the purging of phlegm from the system, at least judging by Miss Davis's expression, the sound that I made. But I couldn't stop. She was the funniest, most adorable thing, the best part of my day, someone poking my head and making jokes about my arsonist ways. What had I expected? Someone to hug me and send me to bed with milk and cookies, kiss my boo-boo and tell me it would be just fine? Nope, they were going to send me to jail, and with one of these when one of these explosions happened, I'd end up right where Miss Stanish wanted me, the upstate New York prison in Onsing, affectionately known as Sing Sing. The other choice was too horrifying to give more than a momentary consideration, sedated like a zombie and locked up in a psychiatric facility. That's what society did to people like me, locked us away and pretended we didn't exist. If horror movies were to be believed, they ignored the awful experimentation that occurred. We were nothing, no one. We were anonymous souls with no voices. I was going to be turned into a mutated lab rat. Thankfully, my mental breakdown was cut short when she clapped her hands in front of my face. Instead of an unkempt, smelly lab assistant staring down at me, Miss Davis's blue eyes radiated concern. Sorry, I muttered, embarrassed at my short trip down the rabbit hole. The stress is finally getting to me. Let's take a better look at this, she said, as she pressed on the lump again. The throbbing, protruding thing became such a presence in the few hours that he'd become sentient. His name was the Boom, and he lived up to the hype. I yelped and scooted away. Boom didn't like her, and for a second, neither did I. Miss Davis sat down next to me and patted my knee. Honey, you're a good kid. What's going on? Why explosions? What are you trying to do? Tears threatened to ruin my carefully cultivated mask of flippancy, which had survived the principal, Troll Stanish, a full squad of police officers, and a house of firefighters. Actually, the firefighters might have been the highlight of this awful day. Mom always said that my taste in men leaned toward the big, muscular, and hot as hell. Sue me. I had a type. Dreams of hot firefighters who belonged on calendars were only a momentary distraction, another break from reality. Back on planet Earth, I was in high school and I had committed the ultimate sin. From an early age, my parents drilled into my head that I had a single responsibility: protect the family by keeping our secrets. Our family's special abilities were too big and too dangerous to share. It was bad enough that I had put my family in danger. This incident threatened to expose us all. Nothing. I'm not trying to do anything. I didn't do this, Miss Davis.